Well, hey, good to be with you. My name's Matt Love. I'm the Strawbridge campus pastor at GraceBible.Church, and it's so good to be with you. I just want to say, wherever you're watching or listening from, whoever you're with, thanks for letting us into your life today, and I hope today is a blessing and an encouragement to you. I hope you had a great Christmas and that you're looking forward to the new year. I don't know about you, but right around this time of year, I fall into the same trap, the same cliche every single year. New Year's resolutions that I know I'm not going to do. I'm telling you, I'm a sucker for goals and resolutions and making changes. And it's just kind of in the air this time of year. Like, what am I going to do next year? And who am I going to be? And I get excited about all of these things. And I know that whatever goals I set, I'm probably not going to do any of them if I'm just being honest and real with you. And I know from statistics that I'm not actually alone in this, that over 40% of people, just over 40% of people are still making New Year's resolutions today. And in the first week, 23% of those people will fail in those resolutions. By the end of the year, only 9% of people are still going strong on their New Year's resolutions. Let's just take one really common New Year's resolution, for example, getting fit and getting in shape. Gyms in January will make nearly 75% of their yearly income. And then in February will be ghost towns. We have commitment issues, don't we? There's this new trend that's been around for a while, but has become increasingly popular called job hopping. It's where people hop from job to job to job and never stay really in one place for a long time. 22% of people age 20 and over who are employed will only stay in their job for at the most a year and sometimes even less. From job hopping to New Year's resolutions, we've got commitment issues. We've got commitment issues because you've got commitment issues. I've got commitment issues. This is an us issue. This is an us thing. Let's just take, for example, this house that we're filming in. This house is actually my wife and I's house. My family lives here. We bought this house as our first home 2.5 years ago, and we knew it was a fixer-upper. And man, we had HGTV fueled dreams for this house. And if I'm being completely honest with you, I'm holding two things in tension. One, I'm so proud of, if I'm being completely honest, my wife, Jenny, and the work that she's put into this house. And if you could see what this house looks like now versus what it looked like 2.5 years ago, she's turned this place from a house into a home. We've knocked out walls. We've painted everything that can be painted. We've put new floors in. We've done all of these things. And it looks great. And I'm really proud of her. And I love this house in a lot of ways. But if I'm being completely honest with you, I'm struggling with my commitment to this house because no matter how much we've done, there's still a lot more to do. And if I'm being even more honest, what needs to be done is so much easier to see than all the work we have done. And isn't that what makes commitment hard? Seeing what you don't have versus seeing what you do have. Because I don't know about you, but when I'm so consumed with what needs to be done versus what has been done, when I'm so consumed with what I don't have versus what I do have, I want to run away from my commitments. I want to run away from my goals. It creates this bad relationship with commitments within me. And what I love about Jesus is he actually talks about this. He doesn't use the word commitment issues. He doesn't use the word commitment, but he talks about it using another word. It's this word, faithfulness. That's really all throughout the Bible. It's this word that mostly is used to describe God, that God is faithful to us, that he will never leave us, he will never forsake us, that he is a God of his word, that he does what he says he will do. But when Jesus comes on the scene, he actually talks about how we're called to be faithful like God is faithful to us. And he talks about what faithfulness looks like. And there's this moment in Matthew's gospel account of Jesus' life where he shares a fictional story called a parable to illustrate a true point. And this specific parable we're going to look at in Matthew 25 is about what faithfulness is and how it can benefit our lives, what it can actually do for you, what it is and what it can actually do for you. So in this fictional story that Jesus shares, he talks about a master that has 3 servants, and he gives the three servants different bags of gold. He gives the first servant 5 bags of gold. He gives the second servant 2 bags of gold. He gives the third servant just 1 bag of gold. And it says in this parable that the master entrusts these servants with his wealth, and he leaves to come back and to collect back what was given to the servants. The first servant takes the 5 bags of gold and he puts it to work. And he gets 5 more bags of gold. He doubles it. He has 10 bags of gold now. And then the second servant, he takes his bags of gold and he does the same and he doubles it. So now he has 4 bags of gold. The third servant, however, what he does is he takes the bag of gold and he buries it in a field and leaves it until the master returns. So the master comes back to collect back what was given to him. And to the first 2 servants that he had given bags of gold to, and they double it, he responds this way. He says in Matthew 25, verse 21, "Well done, good and faithful servant." There's that word faithful. He calls them faithful for what they've done. You've been faithful with just a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share in your master's happiness. Now to the third servant, who just presents back to the master what was given to him, the 1 bag of gold, he says this, "You wicked and lazy servant." A much different response than to the first 2 servants. In verse 28, he continues on, "So take the bag of gold from him and give it to the one who has 10 bags. For whoever has will be given more. Whoever does not have, even what they have will be taken from them." A much different response to that servant than to the first 2. The first 2 saw what they had and they multiplied it. And because of this, the master calls them faithful. The third servant does not receive this title or this accolade because he did not do what the first 2 servants did. And so from this parable, I think we can deduce a couple points about what faithfulness is and what it can do for you and what it can do for me. So the first point about faithfulness is seeing and being grateful for what you have been given. I particularly like the second servant the most in this story because he was the most predisposed to having an unhealthy spiritual, emotional reaction. What I mean by that is he could have looked to the servant who had been given 5 bags of gold and thought, well, why didn't I get 5 bags? Am I not as important as that servant? Why was I only given 2? And he could have wallowed in that. He could have also looked to the servant who had been given 1 bag of gold and become puffed up and prideful and arrogant and thought that he was better than that servant. But we don't have a record of him reacting either of those ways. Instead, what we see is him focusing on what he had been given and multiplying it because his master entrusted him with this wealth, and he focused on that and he multiplied it. And so that's the second principle of faithfulness. It's first seeing and being grateful for what you have been given. And then secondly, faithfulness is multiplying what you've been given. I think there's this perception of people who are faithful and steady, and that they're not the type of people who are focused on growth and progress and setting goals. And I just don't think that's true. Faithfulness is those things. It's just a different starting place. You see, the way of the world is adding to your life what you don't have. Oh, I don't have this, so I'm going to add to my life or pursue adding to my life this thing, whatever it might be. But the way of the kingdom of God, the way of faithfulness, is multiplying what you have been given. The first 2 servants focused on what they had been given, no matter how much or little it was, and multiplying it. And they were called faithful because of this. The third servant does not receive this accolade because he did neither of those 2 things. The third thing that we can deduce about faithfulness from this parable, and this is not our part, this is actually God's part, is faithfulness is rewarded with more. The master says that to the first 2 servants, come and share in your master's happiness. He even says, if you've been faithful with a little, he will give you more. Now, we need to be careful about this passage because it could easily be interpreted as like a one-for-one way to manipulate God. Like if I'm faithful with just a little money, then God will give me lots of money. And that's not always true. It might be true. God might see that you're faithful with the little money you have and give you more, but that's not always true. What's true from this passage is that when you are faithful with a little, God will give you more. But he's in charge of determining what that more looks like. It's your responsibility to see and be grateful for what you've been given and to multiply it, and God will give you more. So what does that look like? Well, I'll tell you what that's looked like for me recently. Let's take this house, for example. Like I said, this is my house, and yes, I've been struggling with my commitment to this house, and I see the windows that need to be replaced, and there's weeds in the backyard that seem to have the resurrection power of Jesus, and they just keep coming back. And there's all these things that I see that we don't have or need to be done. But as God has been teaching me about faithfulness, there's been some other things in this house that I've seen. Take this coffee table behind me, for example. That coffee table, right behind it is my oldest daughter, Eleanor's favorite place to hide when we play hide and seek together. It's funny because it's actually the worst hiding spot in the entire house, and I find her right away. And as soon as I find her, she says, "Daddy, no, don't find me right away. Look around a little bit." And I'm like, "Okay." And I go and I look around, and then I find her later. And it's been this fun memory recently. There's a dining room table over here. That's another thing I'd really like to replace because it's seen some wear and tear. But it's also been this place where my wife and I wake up in the mornings recently and we read our Bibles together. And it's been this place where when our kids nap, we can play games together and just have good conversation and connect as a couple. And that's been another fun memory recently. This kitchen, kind of off to my right here, it's been this place where after our kids go to bed and my wife and I are just tired and exhausted, we've had these great conversations together late at night and have just connected as a couple. And here's what I mean. As I focus on those things, not the things that I don't have or still need to be done in this house, but as I focused on those moments that I do have, I've noticed God give me more. Not necessarily more of what I might want in the moment, but more of what I need. Joy, peace, contentedness. Here's my encouragement to you, that even if you feel like you're living in the reminder of what you lack or what you do not have, God has more for you. And maybe the answer to some of your problems, maybe not all of them, but maybe some of them, is not to get something that you don't have, but to be faithful with what God has given you. To see it, to be grateful for it, and to multiply it. So here's the question. What do you have that you can be faithful with? Maybe it's friendships and family that you can deepen those relationships and those connections this year. Maybe it is your money this year. No matter how much or how little you might have, God's given you money. How can you be a faithful and responsible steward of the money he's given you? Let's take a common New Year's resolution, for example, getting fit and getting healthy. Let's be real. This guy is never going to look like an Instagram model, but God has given me a body to treat with dignity and respect. And so can I have that goal from that place of faithfulness instead of trying to create something that I'm never going to have? Is it maybe a job that you're in and it's just hard? And I just want to empathize. If you're in that position, it's tough, it's difficult. And maybe God might call you to leave, maybe now or maybe later, but maybe it's worth asking God, do you want me to stay? Because you want me to be faithful with this job? Because you want to do something in me and teach me about yourself, whatever it might be. He might have something for you in that. What has God called you to be faithful with this year? It's my hope and my prayer that 2024 is a year of faithfulness for you and that God gives you more that you didn't even know you needed. Let's be faithful this year. Thanks for being with us today.